ahead and get started. Do our September meeting. How's everybody doing today? Good. Y'all can hear me, right? Usually nobody complains about me being too quiet. Normally it's the other way around. If this is your first time, welcome. We're the Moody Aviation Club. We've been going since about July, so this is our 4th meeting. We've had a couple of events that we've been able to do. We had a fly-in event out at Adel, where our CFI pilot went ahead and took a bunch of us up on our first discovery flights. That was a good time for those of us that were able to make it to that. And then, in addition to the aviation side where we're trying to get our pilot's licenses, we've got the maintenance side where a bunch of us are trying to get our AMPs. So we'll go ahead and start. Next slide. We're always going to go through, today's agenda, we're always going to go through our mission statement. We're always going to talk about our maintenance discipline. We're going to meet some of our partners today. At least I thought that's what we were doing. And then we're going to say goodbye to a couple others that are going to be leaving here soon. And then we have a new idea we're going to try to get started. We're calling it our AMP initiative right now. Our mission statement is to provide Moody Air Force Base individuals with unique opportunities to fly, maintain, and learn about aviation by working with local instructors and companies. It is also to provide mentorship and classes for individuals that want to better themselves. We're not just interested in trying to make ourselves good for aviation purposes, we're trying to make ourselves good for Air Force purposes as well. Next slide. The biggest thing we always want to hit home, specifically for our maintenance personnel, do not take what you learn out there back on base. Make sure that everything that you do, you are signed off on in TBA, that you're qualified for the task, and that you're doing everything by the book. Safe by the book maintenance, you guys have heard it 100 times. It does not change because you go and work on civilian airplanes, because you will find out real quickly that working on civilian airplanes is not necessarily the same thing as working on military aircraft. It'd be a good way to get us axed, so don't do it. Next slide, please. All right, so we're going to talk about some of our partners today. We're going to talk about Azalea Aviation, Wiregrass. We have a new CFI pilot, Miss Katie Sweet.
Hi.
And then, was Douglas coming out today too?
Yep, I like this.
Okay, perfect. I didn't get them on the slide because I wasn't sure. I'm going to speak on behalf of Azalea Aviation. Go ahead and turn the slide. So the owner is Bill Clapp. What he does, he makes experimental aircraft. You can see a picture of his signature airplane, the Saber Wing right there. That's a place where people go, they buy a kit, and they work and build their own airplane. And then he has guys there that help them build his airplane. He also offers classes, learning about engines, specifically taking the Corvair engine and converting it into an aircraft or airworthy engine. What Mr. Clapp has allowed us to do is to go out and work on certified aircraft and learn some of our AMP stuff. Over the last couple months, we've taken down an engine, we've repacked struts, and we started to refurbish a Cessna 162, 142, or 140. 140. Yeah, it's a tail dragger. That's a good question. That might be a question for one of our pilots.
Claire, what's the difference between?
No.
So I think 152s are 2-seat airplanes, 172s are 4-seat airplanes, and then what's the tail dragger model?
120 and 140 are tail dragger, 140 has flaps.
Okay, so 120s and 140s are tail draggers. Tail drag airplanes require special endorsements, although you can do your entire private pilot's license with the tail dragger airplane itself. Does that make sense? And then obviously the bigger the airplane, the more you end up paying for it for training. So a 4-seat versus 2-seat, you're going to end up paying a little bit more. Tail dragger is, so you've got essentially 2 types of gear. You have tricycle gear, so it's 1 in the front, 2 in the back, so it would look like this. And then a tail dragger is the opposite, so you have 1 in the back, 2 in the front. And the airplane kind of sits like that with the tail dragging along, it looks like, kind of along the ground in the back.
It's like the bush planes, the big types, those are tail draggers.
Yep, those are all tail dragger types. Yep, good question.
anyway, we started working on refurbishing one of those. And I think some of you guys have actually come out and helped us. I was out there last Monday, tearing out the interior, taking out the console and stuff. Once these aircraft are put back together, Bill has offered to let us use these aircraft to run fly on at a fairly reduced rate. In addition to his reduced rate, he's also giving us a military discount. Bill has also offered, he's got the October motor class or engines class coming. We don't have a whole lot of details on it yet. As we get them, we're going to kick them out, but it's going to be very similar to his pilots class, which I know you took part in. That was learning about how the airframe is built and the different benefits to using composite versus using metal. So that's Azalea Aviation and Mr. Bill Claps, what he's been doing for us in the aviation club.
I will be going out on Saturday morning, to ask that we pull or tear apart the engine of the 140, and also try to get it jacked, so to say, take out the maintenance. So I'll be doing that on Saturday morning, say at 9 o'clock. If anybody's interested, come on out, get our hands dirty, learn a little bit. A lot of people are hands-on, especially when it comes to maintenance. I know for myself, I gotta do it. Get down, get gritty. If anybody's interested, come on out to the Cook County Airport.
Most of the time we're not out there. It's not like an all-day event. How long are you anticipating this is going to take?
4 hours.
4 hours? Yeah, that's kind of what I figured it would too. So that's kind of what we do. We go out there for like 4 hours, so you're not dedicating your whole day to it. And it gives you an opportunity to learn some things that you can learn here.
That's one in Abel, right?
Yes.
Next slide.
The Wiregrass couldn't make it. I'll brief on that real quick. Wiregrass is bringing up a AAV class. It's a week-long class. Air Force School will assist in paying for it, but they're only going to pay for testing and books. It's going to be about $800 out of pocket, depending on what, if you're going for airframe or power plant. If you do both, I think it's a little bit more, a couple $100 more. It's a week-long crash course. You can get permissive TDY to do this if you're interested. You do have to have FAA endorsement prior to, so you got to get your 8610-2 signed off. If anybody's interested, hit us up afterwards and get you contact info. We're going to do this twice a year right now, but we got more that we're going to try to handle in-house. We'll get to that in a little bit.
I think Miss Katie Sweet, I think you were next.
Hey, do you have a little microphone?
I'm sorry, we do not.
Oh, okay.
We're not that
I'll just
sophisticated
talk
here.
loudly for everybody. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Sweet. A little bit about me. My father's sitting right over there. It's Sweetness. I don't know if you know him. I'm friends with Claire and Nick, and I've known them for some time. I'm from the area. I'm moving back from Jacksonville after instructing down there for about 600 hours because we're going to get a little 172 of our own. And I do flight instruction out of Valdosta Airport. A little bit about my ratings. I'm a C5, CFII, and multi-engine instructor. What that means is I can provide private pilot instruction, instrument instruction, and multi-engine instruction as well. If you want my contact information, I'd be glad to share it with you guys afterwards and discuss with you any of your personal plans for flying or interests or aspirations. I'd love to hear all of it. That's really all there is about me, so thanks for letting me come up here and talk. Short and sweet, right? All right.
All right, so again, I'm Captain Victor Growski. I go by Sick. I'm the chief pilot here. Good introduction. Thanks, Katie. And then I'll introduce my wife, Claire, who's also a CFI who flies up in Douglas. She'll talk to you very briefly about the services that they provide up in Douglas, what they have, and then additionally, she'll touch on her experience going through a Part 141 program at Middle Georgia State University. They have a satellite campus up in Adel, and she is about to graduate from that university. So she has quite a bit of experience using the GI Bill and her experience working with that. So my wife Claire.
Alright, well, you just told all of my things, but I'm Claire. I'm currently instructing in a Cessna 172 up in Douglas. It's an uncontrolled field, so there's no tower or anything. It's very quiet location, so it's a good place to learn. The owner of the aircraft also has, he does all the maintenance in-house. He's the mechanic for the aircraft, so it's very well maintained. It's been a good place to instruct. Yep, I do have experience using the GI Bill. That's been tremendously helpful. I got my private pilot license with my husband. He instructed me. That was fun. It's probably harder on me than he would be on any of you, but yeah, so I've got a little bit of experience with 141 and Part 61, so I'd be happy to answer any questions about the training for either. Yeah, about 600 hours, and I've got a check ride coming up for my instrument instructor, so soon I'll be able to instruct teaching instrument flying. But currently I can instruct private pilots, so anyone that's just going for their initial reading, that would be mainly what I do now. So yeah, that's about it. Let me know if you have any questions.
Awesome. All right, well, thank you guys. So, again, the purpose of the Aero Club is to attach people with assets. So that's why Katie and Claire are here today, is to give you guys an opportunity to pick their brains, get contact information, schedule flights, and get on the track to success, getting your private pilot's license, and then moving on and potentially becoming a commercial pilot someday. So before we go forward, does anybody have any questions right now for either myself or the girls about their rates, their availability, what the process is like, how much it costs, the timeline associated with it, anything like that? Go ahead.
The cost, yeah, like I know it's only 40 hours for Part 141, but I've heard a lot of people say 50 to 60 hours. If you're comfortable with it without any flying experience, what would you say like an average of 50 hours would cost?
Yeah, so here's what we're looking to do as what I'm looking to do as the the chief pilot at the Aero Club is to start standardizing a syllabus and like a cost for you guys. So what we want to do is eliminate questions about whether or not you should go to Claire, whether you should go to Katie, or whether you should go to another CFI, so that you guys know no matter who you pick, you're getting the same type of training, the same type of books. You can bounce ideas back and forth off of each other. To answer your question, the minimum is 40 hours of flight training in order to get your private pilot's license. At the current rate, I would say it's anywhere between about $7,000 to $8,000, and that's going to include instruction and the airplane as well. What I like to tell people when they first start flight training is that the more you fly, the less you're going to spend. And the reason is because flying is a perishable skill. If you only fly once a week, you're not going to pick it up fast enough to get through in 40 hours. So what we want to do is get you flying 2 to 3 times a week so that you guys are proficient at it and you can get done as quickly as possible. Now I know that flying costs a lot of money. You're looking at $8,000 is quite a bit of money for all of us, right? So the best thing to do is to stockpile a little bit of money and then start flight training rather than start flight training and kind of go paycheck by paycheck. But that's just my experience in my recommendation for the group. So, Katie, do you have anything additionally?
The best way to save yourself money is to study. That's what I would add to that.
Yep, and that's a great point too. So, and I've flown with both Claire and Katie, and so they understand like kind of our method, how we do things. They have a little bit of military background in their families and experience. But the biggest thing that you guys can do is study. And when you're looking for what do I study, what do I buy, a timeline of things, that's where you guys, I want you to reach out to either myself or one of the girls, and they're going to provide you with the books that you need to buy, what you need to be studying, and then the expectation on your first flight. So Josh and I have been flying a little bit already. We sat down one night here on base after work. We went over exactly the information that I wanted him to know, and when he showed up for his first flight, he was very well prepared, knew everything that I needed him to know, and he's already steps in front of your average civilian pilot because of those reasons. And as long as he stays on this track, he's going to save a lot of money. Now, when I say save a lot of money, he'll probably save $1,000, maybe $1,500, as opposed to people that put it off, aren't studying, can only fly once a week, or taking a lot of breaks, might spend, Katie, Claire, how much? I've seen people spend $9,000 or $10,000 on flight training. So,
I've seen a lot more than that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So again, it's expensive. It seems a little counterintuitive, but you guys really need to study, and you definitely need to save ahead of time before you start flight training as well. So, Claire, pile-ons?
Yeah, I would say expect that, sometimes things are gonna go really smoothly and you're gonna have some really rough flights and you're like, okay, this is hard. It's not coming as naturally as maybe I would expect it to. That's especially when you need to just keep going. Because that's people tend to want to take breaks and be like, I want to take a couple weeks off, and that's kind of the opposite. You want to just keep going.
Yeah, that's another great point. So, like all things, right, it's going to get hard at some point. You guys are going to hit road bumps and speed bumps along the way. It's going to get difficult. And when you hit those road bumps and speed bumps, you're going to want to pull the throttles back and be like, hey, I'm going to take a couple weeks off. I'm going to take a little break. But keep in mind what the end goal is to get your private pilot's license. You want to push through that. You want to utilize the funds that you've saved up. You're going to have to buckle down and study a little bit more and get you through. Because otherwise, those hours become useless at some point in your life. I'll give you an example, but I've flown with students that have flown 30 or 40 hours, logged, never got their private pilot's license, and then came back to me 6 or a year later, 6 months to a year later, and said, hey Nick, I want to get my private pilot's license. I already have 30 hours of flight time. This should only take 10 more hours. Well, you're no longer proficient in the airplane. You don't remember anything. Your studying went out the window, and you're not proficient anymore at flying, right? So it's a perishable skill. And those people ended up taking 70 or 80 hours to get their private pilot's license. So that's where you're looking at $10,000 and $12,000 costs. So it's a program that's tough. Keep in mind, it's difficult. It's not going to be easy. It's not for everybody. There's a reason for that. But if you're passionate about it, you have a game plan, your family's on board, you have the funds to support you, I would say for the first 3 to 4 months of it, get going and push through. So, good question. What else?
Off the top of your head, what's a good source to study?
Yeah, so again, I'm working on getting a standardized list of books that I want you guys to use to prepare yourselves, okay? Now, the girls have been through many different flight programs. Katie went through ATP, Claire went through a 141 university program. They've also been through Part 61 programs themselves, and so they've had to develop their own syllabus. But having the experience that I have, I'm quite simple. Josh can attest to this. But I look for what we call source documents. So the FAR AIM is a good book. It's called FAR/AIM. That book is the Federal Aviation Regulations, and the back of the book is the Aeronautical Information Manual. The front of the book are all the rules about flying. That's what keeps you legal while you're flying. And the back of the book is how to do it. It's techniques on how you're going to fly, how you're going to land, how you're going to take off, things like that. That is a source document, right? So when we reference the rules, it comes from that book. So you do need to get that book, and that book has to be current. I apologize, but the FAA kicks out a new book every single year. So it's their way of making money. I think it costs about $30 maybe online, something like that. So
it was $20 on Amazon.
okay, $20. Yep. And then I would bet that 2021 book is already probably in the mix, if not already online. They usually come out with it by mid-November. 2021 will come out. So what you want to do is lead term that. If you're anticipating going to fly get the FAR aim, you're gonna look for 2021. Okay, the second source document is the POH, or the Pilot Operating Handbook. That comes from the airplane that you guys are gonna fly. So when you contact either Katie or Claire and say, hey, I want to start flying up in Douglas, or I want to start flying down in Valdosta, can we fly next week? They're going to bring you in and say, yep, sure, let's meet up on a certain date at a certain time. And they're going to show you the airplane. And in that airplane is a pilot operating handbook. It's basically the manual, just like you get in your car, the one that gets stuffed in the glove box that nobody ever reads. Well, this one's for real, right? We got to know how to operate the airplane within the operation limitations of the airplane itself, and the system's knowledge of how the airplane works, so that when things go wrong, you know how to handle it, all right? So that's another one, what I call source document, and those source document is a reference. So Josh, it was the FAR aim, the POH, what else did I give you?
Those are just main two besides, there was one book that you suggested we
Suggest,
bought.
yep.
And it was just, all it was the FAR aim summed up with pictures. People are picture learners.
That's it, yep.
I can't remember what it was. It's like,
It was a Jeppesen book.
yeah.
Yep, thank you. So those are the two source documents. Now, those two books are the only books that you guys need in my mind, all right? But I was a military trained pilot, so we're very simple-minded, like, hey, go read this 500-page document, absorb it, and then you're gonna take a test on it, right? But some people don't learn that way. Some people need pictures and pretty colors, and some people need videos. Yeah, so if you know that you're that type, there are there are,
So the
go ahead.
FAA puts out some other source documents too, that you have the pretty pictures and longer explanations about things. Those are called the Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge and the Airplane Flying Handbook.
Good.
So I have both of those because I like to highlight and write all over my stuff. The FAR aim, yep. The POH, yep. The ACS, the Airman Certification Standards, that's the rubric, the test rubric. The FAA examiner eventually comes in and sits down with you and decides whether or not you can get a cert or not. He's going to be going off of this book going, okay, did they perform the maneuver within these ACS standards? And that's the Airman Certification Standards again, for private pilot airplane, single engine land. And there's also the oral exam topics in there as well. You can find those through tasks A through H in the beginning. That's what covers almost all of your oral exam. So you can go ahead and get on that too if you want.
Yeah,
So you
that's-
can read PDFs online, just search. I'm sure you can find those.
Yeah, that's great information. Thank you, Katie. The ACS is free off the FAA website. It's faa.gov. You can search ACS, Private Pilot Standards. You can print it out as a PDF document. And again, that's the test standard. So that's the standard that you have to meet in order to get your private pilot's license. And then, as Katie mentioned, the FAA produces two documents. Say it again.
The Pilot's Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge, also known as the PHAC, and then the Airplane Flying Handbook. So the PHAC is like knowledge stuff, and then the Airplane Flying Handbook is maneuvers and airplane flying and that kind of thing.
There you go. So those are like the pretty pictures, right? Those are all FAA documents. Those are source documents. That's coming directly from the Federal Aviation Administration. Now, I've told you guys in the past, if you ever came to another meeting with me, I told you guys about sporties.com. It's SPORTYS, sporties.com. They're kind of like the Walmart shopping center for pilots. They have everything that you guys need, logbooks, they'll have the FAR aim, all of these books that you can go and buy online. Now, there are a lot of private corporations that have taken the pretty pictures and made them into videos and then have remade the pictures and done all of those things. Some of those are called King Air, King Schools, I think. Jeppesen is another one of those corporations. Those books, those documents, that's everything that the FAA compiled, all of that information, just rewritten with prettier pictures and then sold at twice the price. All right, so you don't have to have that, but if you know that you like to learn with videos, if you know that you like to learn with pictures, then maybe you want to take a look at some of those things, like the Jeppesen Private Pilot book is going to be helpful for you. All right. Otherwise, source documents is all that you need. Now, when I sat down with Josh, we went over kind of a study syllabus for him about 2 or 3 weeks before we started flying. And I said, okay, I want you to bring all the source documents with you. I sat down and I was like, you're gonna highlight this and this and this. This is the order that I want you guys to study, and this is what I want you to know on day one. And then every flight from that point forward, we've gone over the things that he's already studied, and we start talking about the things that he needs to study, okay? That's a good question. Any other questions about that? Yeah, go ahead.
Are you a DP lined up?
No, so the Aero Club does not have a DP that's lined up. That's a good question. Fitz, if you want to take a note, maybe that's something we can look into in the future. There are several DPs in town, so designated pilot examiner. Those are people that are going to give you your check ride. All of the fees associated with those guys is separate. So you have to pay them separately for their time and to give you the check ride. Claire has used a guy down in Tallahassee. What's his name? Robbie Turner. We've had good experience with Robbie. She's done probably 6 check rides with Robbie in Tallahassee. Katie, I know you've done some down in Jacksonville.
Yeah, my examiners were Ernie Strange and Matt Klein.
Okay, so there's a couple down in Jacksonville, and then there is one guy locally here in Quitman. Luke Clausen is his name, and he's a pretty good guy as well. So there's a lot of designated pilot examiners out there that can check you guys out. Yeah, that'd be So that'd be a good one too. Good questions.
It's in cash, by the way, when you do your check out with those guys, it's in cash.
Cash,
That's tax-free.
tax-free cash.
Well, if your check ride goes bad, you can't cancel the credit card charge, that's your check.
All right, what else? What other questions you guys have for the CFIs or myself? Go ahead.
I have a question. He and I are flying status, we're controllers at the RAPCON.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that, we need a flight physical from the FAA, or if that translates to getting a private pilot's license. Do we need to get a flight physical from a...
So what kind of flight physical do you
Type
have?
2.
Does it say, what does it say on it?
I can fill one out.
Does it say type 2 medical?
It's a 2992, so that's...
Oh, okay, all right. So for anybody who has a 2992 in this room, that does not count for Jack
Right.
on the FAA side, all right? It doesn't make any sense, I know, but it doesn't count towards anything, all right? So you still have to go into a FAA designated flight surgeon. Now, the only one that we know that's local is, Claire, help me out. Tom.
That's Dennis.
Yeah, Dr. Dennis Thomas at SGMC Medical.
Yeah, but he's got his own building down by Daylight Donuts.
Yep, right by Daylight Donuts.
Got a call a couple months ahead of time, man.
Chick-fil-A. You guys probably know where that is.
I called them the other day, and it's $125.
It's $125 to get your medical.
Class 3.
Yep. So again, just to reiterate, we got 3 classes of medical. We have first class, that's for airline pilots. It only lasts 6 months or a year if you're under 40. You have a second class, that's for commercial pilots. You're looking at CFIs, Part 135 operators. You guys don't want that either. You guys want the third class medical. That's for private pilots. Okay, that's what you guys want. It all costs the same. Now, what I encourage you guys to do is if you have any ambition whatsoever of someday becoming an airline pilot, I suggest getting a first class medical right now, because it will be very telling if you have some medical problem that is going to preclude you from becoming an airline pilot before you waste $100,000 on your flight training. Now, the good thing about your first class medical is when it expires, it becomes a second class medical. And then when it expires, it becomes a third class medical. So, Josh, do you get a first class? Okay, so Josh is getting a first class on my recommendation. Another pilot that we fly with at the Aero Club, Nelson, he's a security forces dude. He got his first class medical done on the same recommendation. He passed, so he's super happy. He knows that medically he can become an airline pilot, but he still has now 3 years, right? Third class is 3 years.
How old is he?
Under 40.
No,
5. years. All right, so Nelson's got 5 years before he has to go back to his medical. All right. Now the third class medical is like, hey, can you fog this mirror? And then you breathe on it, and then it fogs, and then they sign you off. The second class medical is like, hey, take this eye exam. You're not super great, but it's good enough. The first class medical is pretty in depth. It's more like a 2992 for you guys or anybody who's been to a flight surgeon on base. You're going to go through a hearing test, and an eye exam, and a EKG if you're over 35, I think. And it's fairly in depth, but it's worth it if you guys want to do that. All right.
And that's what you recommend us get?
I recommend you get it now if you want to become an airline pilot.
You said class 1?
First class medical. Yep, first class medical. Because it'll expire its way into a third class medical, but then you know now that you're capable of
You're not
getting
disqualified.
Yeah, you're not disqualified. Because I would hate for you guys to go and spend your entire GI Bill on a Part 141 school and then be like, I'm going to become an airline pilot, only to find out that you had some medical disqualifying thing that's going to preclude you from a first class medical. Yes, sir.
The next closest examiners in poultry, having doc outreach, so
Okay.
if you want to do it quicker.
Awesome.
Around the holidays especially, I was able to get in with them.
Great. That's great.
Yeah.
I know that there is another one in Tallahassee who has better, he has better availability as well. So if you guys are truly in a rush to get it done, you can call over to Tallahassee. If you're looking for designated medical examiners or flight surgeons, you can go on the FAA website, and they have a little pull-down menu, and then you put in your location, and it'll say within 50 miles or whatever, and it'll give you the list of flight surgeons in the area. Yeah, good question about medicals. What else?
If you already have a license and you're just like wicked non-current and you'd like to start flying again,
Yeah.
you have to go back and get a class 3.
Yeah, you're going to have to go back and get a current medical. So if your medical's expired, you're going to need to go get a current medical.
Yeah.
And then you're going to need what's called a biannual flight review. So you're going to sit down with one of, you don't need to do it with the DPE, which is nice. You can sit down with one of the CFIs, and they're going to go through kind of like a mock check ride, if you will, except you're not paying them $500 or $600, you're only paying them $50. And then, of course, they can't tell you kind of no anyways. They can kind of refuse to sign your logbook at the end if they think you're dangerous, but ultimately they want to get you kind of back up to speed. Now, I've seen people that are so far out of proficiency that instructors have refused to sign off their biannual. They're just like, let's just fly a couple more times, we'll get you going, everything will be okay. Because ultimately, once a CFI puts his or her name in the back of your logbook, we are now responsible for the actions, some of the actions that you take. And ultimately, if I signed you off on a biannual and you crash the next day, the FAA would be coming looking for me. But yes, you'll need a biannual, you'll need your flight medical, and then
Driver's license.
driver's license, thank you.
And that's, if you're already a licensed pilot, those are the 3 documents you need to fly. As a student pilot, you also need to have your logbook because it has your endorsements for your solo in it. So, but that's only for student pilots. That's pretty much it.
Fitz, who's our ops secretary?
Ops?
Ops side? Yeah. We're flying, don't we have a flying secretary?
That'd be Jade Swain.
Jade Swain.
SWAIN.
Okay. Okay. So Jade is the flying secretary. She's going to take, he is going to take all of your documents. All right. So the documents that Katie just said, say them again.
You need, if you're already a pilot, you need your pilot's license, you need your driver's license, and you need your medical.
Okay.
You should also have your logbook because you're probably going to need a 5-minute flight when you sign off. You need to have one of those every 24 calendar months to act as PIC of an airplane. And then if you're a student pilot, you need to have student pilot cert, you need to have driver's license, you need to have medical, and you need to have your logbook with your endorsements in it.
And you have to have now proof of U.S. citizenship. That sounds
Yes.
stupid, but we have to prove that all of you guys are U.S. citizens as post 9/11 ops.
So that's actually an endorsement that We can give you, it's just a TSA endorsement. All it is, you show us your birth certificate or passport, and then we write in the back, I certify that whoever has shown me his birth certificate, passport, this is its number, and it's a U.S. citizen, and for instance, $50-52 hotel, anyway, that's it. And then you just put that in there, and it's written in there already, so I don't have to worry about it really after that.
Good. And then for all of the folks on base, you guys are going to need the, help me out if it's the waiver, the high risk waiver. High risk activity waiver. Okay, and that has to go to Jade Swain. Yes, so he is going to need all of those documents, including the high risk waiver, so that we can keep them on file here at the Aero Club. Good. What other questions? You guys are thinking of asking? Yeah, go ahead.
If you're looking to get type rating for, say, an S-70 because you're qualified in a helicopter already,
Yes.
is that something the Aero Club can help connect the right people together? Because we got rumor that currently we can get an S-70 type rating with a 60 Golf, and soon they're going to split them into two. So it'd be really nice to get that before I camp.
Sir, I'm going to have to take a look at what an S-70 is.
It's a Sikorsky civilian AK-60.
Claire, what is, what do they fly up in Douglas? Yeah.
You
take-
It wouldn't be going to fly with anybody. It'd be talking to the right people to say, here's all my hours.
You just need to make an appointment with the FISO,
Okay.
bring your current check right, and the FISO will probably give you the type rating, but,
For some money.
I don't think it does. I think getting on the calendar up in Atlanta or Orlando is gonna be the issue. I don't think it will take a whole lot of time. I got that added in my card.
That'd be a question for the FISO for sure. Especially, so if you're going from HH60 to S70.
Yeah, I can talk to you more about it after.
Okay. Yeah, so, yeah, that'd be a FISO question. I really have no idea. What else? If you guys have questions, ask them, because somebody else is probably thinking it too, so.
Can I touch on financing for a bit?
Yeah.
For a second? So a lot of people they hear the $6,000 to $8,000 and they panic and they're like, oh, they kind of give up. So if people have thrift savings plan, I don't know if you do or not. If you do, you can take out half of that at like 0.75% loan and you pay yourself back. A lot of people don't know that. You take it out and you can use it for whatever you want. Now, if you want to say, hey, I'm ready to do this, I got to get $20,000. I'm going to use this as an example. I have $20,000 in my TSP. You can take out 10 grand. You pay $50 for processing fees, and you pay yourself back at whatever the G fund is, like 0.5%. So instead of going and getting a loan from a bank, you use your TSP, and then it automatically comes out of your own check. So you can go and get your PPL a lot quicker, save yourself money in the long run, and knock it out really quick. They send it right to your bank. Just trying to touch on that. I don't want people thinking, even if you have a few $1,000s in your TSP, you can take it out and get this ball rolling. Like I said, spend with money in your pocket, you save money in the long run.
Yeah, that's great information. Which brings up another thought that I had. So who here in this room wants to use the GI Bill to become a commercial pilot? Okay, so there's a couple people. Okay, so why is it so important that you get your private pilot's license? Yes, it's a step that you need to get your commercial, but the VA will not pay for your private pilot's license. They will only pay for licenses after your private pilot's license. Instrument, commercial, multi-engine, CFI, II, MEI. Why? Because the VA knows that too many people quit after doing their private. like, oh, it was expensive, it was hard, right? So they want to see that you guys are in it for real for the long run. So you got to pay out of pocket to get your private pilot's license. Then the VA will start picking up the tab. So to pile on what Fitz was saying, it is important if you're looking at this as a career to look at it as a timeline and say, okay, well, when do I want to start school? When will I be able to use the GI Bill? How long do I have then to get my private pilot's license? How long do I have to save? What do I need to do to achieve that? So if you draw up a timeline on your whiteboard at home or whatever you guys have available, you start looking at it as a career path and not just something that the Aero Club is connecting you guys to CFI. So that's something that Claire and I did. So I gave Claire her private pilot's license as soon as she was done. She enrolled at Middle Georgia State University. We used the GI Bill. She started up on her instrument, and it was kind of kick her out of the nest to go get all of her other licenses, and then she completed her program. So that's how quickly it can happen. We started in
24 months.
the whole thing from the time that we started her pilot training, private pilot, it was 24 months, and she's now a flight instructor, making money doing this, building hours. She's probably 6 months away from, as long as COVID and everything, does well, she's probably 6 months away from applying to a regional airline. So again, there's a timeline associated with this stuff. Think about it logically, use your money wisely. If it's something you guys are looking at doing as a career, then look more deeply into getting your private knocked out as quickly as possible so that you can start using that GI money to get you into university and get going, right? Cool. What else? Sir?
So you're saying let's say for example, I separate from the military and now I have this GI Bill. I can't go to like Utah Valley University and use that as like a pipeline to go into like Delta or American Airlines without the private pilots?
You can, but you have to get your private pilot license first, out of pocket.
Before I even apply.
Not before you apply to the university, but the university program, right, Claire?
There's a flight track, so like I just know I got accepted, but she just maybe what?
Middle Georgia State.
Yeah. So you can take like for me, for instance, I have some credits that I was able to transfer. I still have a lot of my core classes I have to take. Until you get your private pilot's license, you can't start the flight portion of the college, your college. So I can be on the gold and stuff, but I don't have my privates. I'm still going to school and getting
Core credits.
right,
Like general
right,
Yeah.
right. So you just can't continue until you get your private pilot's license.
Now, the GI Bill will continue to pay for your school, right? So they're gonna pay for those core credits and all of the benefits that you get, but they're not gonna pay for your flight training, which is different at a lot of these schools. Now, Middle Georgia State had a separate flight account. So when Claire went to go get her instrument done or commercial done, they just pulled money from that account and then the VA would fill the account back up. Now, they'll probably do the same at Utah State or wherever you said, but for the private, you're not gonna fill your account up. So you've gotta fill that account, you've gotta get your private, and then they start filling it in, if that makes sense. So again, to reiterate, the VA will pay for your school, they'll pay for your university, but they will not pay for your private pilot license. They will only pay for your instrument, commercial, multi-engine, everything from that point forward. So we want to get that knocked out as quickly as possible.
How long does a private pilot license last?
Last?
Yeah, like forever?
Yeah, indefinitely. Yeah, indefinitely. Now again, like, you can go out of currency, but you can regain currency quite easily.
How do you go out of currency? Just not flying and forgetting anything?
Yeah, it's been a long time. Go ahead, Katie.
Okay, so there's currency and proficiency, right? Proficiency means can you do it without killing yourself?
That's proficiency.
Yeah, that's proficiency. Currency means legally, lawyer speak, can you go fly this airplane? That's what currency means. So all you need to because the privilege of a private pilot license is to get that biannual flight review. And there's some other regulations regarding the carrying of passengers, but even those are real small. You just need to do 3 takeoffs and landings, and do a full stop if they're at night to carry passengers.
Every
So-
90 days.
Every 90 days, that's right. So as you can see, like legal-wise, the requirement to exercise the private pilot license is actually like, it's not much. But you have to go, you know, can I actually do this safely, right? There's a difference between the two, and the FAA actually differentiates the difference between those two words.
So if you're looking at separating, using your GI Bill to go to school, I would suggest getting your private pilot license before you separate. That way, when you enroll at the university, you hit the ground running in the flight program, starting your instrument, everything's paid for, you're just like, let's go. You know what I mean? That would be my suggestion. And that's what we did with Claire, actually, is before she enrolled in the university, we got her private pilot done. And then once it was complete, we enrolled her, she hit the ground running, instrument, commercial, everything else, and then got through the program.
But I gotta get this medical first.
Yeah, you gotta get the medical first. Yeah.
Because I
Start
actually
your flight
called.
training before, so you can actually go and start flying before you have your medical. You just need it before you solo.
Okay, yeah, because I called the medical clinic, and I was telling her about my plan, and then the lady was like, you shouldn't get it now because it'd be like a waste of money, because you just have to get it renewed again in a year. And I told her, I was like, well, I want to make sure like I'm not disqualified. And then she kind of talked me out of it, so I don't know.
I would not,
Dr. Thompson?
Yes, either that or I know there's a doctor in Lake City. I don't actually remember.
for everybody that calls a flight surgeon office in the FAA, do not listen to the secretaries. Okay, because I have had many discussions with secretaries about when things expire and when they don't, and I have not had a good experience listening to them. So you can look on the federal aviation regulations. In fact, I have once had to bring in like the book to a secretary and be like, it's written here that it doesn't expire type thing. So you can read it right in the far end. You can Google search it. It will tell you when it expires, how long it's good for. Your first class medical, if you go and get that tomorrow, is good for 5 years. The first class is only good for a year, and then it becomes a second class for 2 years, and then it becomes a third class for 3 years. So you got 5 years, right? So she may say, well, your first class expires after a year. True, but then it becomes a second class.
You can still fly.
And I can still fly because I'm not flying an airliner, right? So she may assume that you're an airline pilot. You're not, right? So, and then she doesn't know that you're not a commercial pilot and that you're only using it for private piloting. So, my suggestion, do your own research, don't trust the secretaries. Sweetness, yeah.
Can I say a few words?
Yes, please.
I'm Carl Sweet. I'm the deputy group commander over there on the reserves. That's my part-time job. I'm the Southwest guy. That's my civilian job. I just wanted to say, I was in the Air Force a very long time, very jaded background. When I was a lieutenant, we had aero clubs at just about every base. My first base was Myrtle Beach Air Force Base. When I heard you guys were standing this up, I got very excited. I think this is a great opportunity. Before COVID hit, there was a massive pilot shortage. There was also a massive A&P shortage in the airlines. My daughter, she graduated last November, I think. And we went to a convention in February, and she got like 5 leads on jobs. And of course, all came crashing down because of COVID. I don't think COVID's going to last very long. Yes, these careers that you're thinking about jumping into are expensive, but it's well worth the investment because once you make it to the big leagues in the airlines, either as a mechanic or a pilot, you make a lot of money and you don't work very hard. There's no other profession, doctor, big banker, investor, they might make more money, but they work for it. In the airlines, you do your 14 hours a month, you get paid very well, and you go home. So if you guys want to talk about the airline, there's some negatives to it, absolutely. And it's a risk. You might become hard broke, you can't fly, or you might figure later on, I can't make the cut or whatever, but if you guys want to talk to me about it afterwards, please feel free. Good luck.
Thank you, sweeties. All right, last questions here before we move on. Any parting shots?
Just we look forward to working with you.
Clear?
I don't know, I think you can have a lot of fun with it. You can go cool places, and really enjoy the flying while you're studying really hard.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's fun. So I'll leave you guys before we move on. I'll leave you guys with, if you're interested, you want to start flying, please approach one of the young women here before they leave tonight. Get their phone numbers, get their contact information, and they'll set you on the right track to your private pilot's license. Next slide.
Yeah.
All right, yes. With all of that being said, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, my wife and I are going 6 months to TDY to Korea, starting October 1st. So I'm leaving in about 2 weeks. Claire's going to follow up about a month later. She'll be around until almost mid-December. So she'll have a little bit more availability, and then she's going to come to Korea for the last 3 months. But I want to thank you guys for making this happen, because it's your passion about aviation that gets me up in the morning. I love coming up here and talking to you guys and working with you. I love flying with Josh and Nelson and all the dudes, and it's just been a lot of fun. So hopefully I leave it a better place than I found it. Fitz is going to take care of the next chief pilot that comes in, and if you guys ever have any questions or anything like that, please don't hesitate to contact me or look me up in the global. Even when I'm in Korea, I'd be happy to help you and give advice, and so would my wife. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. Thanks. So we're hiring a chief pilot. Everybody knows they do with base access, and they're a CFI. Love to help her. If anybody's even interested in trying to take on that role, digging in the weeds, if you guys are interested in all that's out there. If you know anybody that is just like, hey, yeah, I'd love to do it. We do have guys that have our chief of maintenance. He doesn't have his AMP, but he's like, yeah, I'll take on this lead, and I'll see what I can do, and get this club up and rolling. So if you guys know anybody, or if anybody is interested, let me know. We're hiring volunteers. We get the next slide.
Yep. Yeah, real important. Myself, I'm interested in both sides, flying and AMP. I don't have an AMP. Been in maintenance for 10 years, and it's just the next step for me. And then once that's out of the way, I'm looking at doing the flying portion, try to get the best of both worlds. For those of you interested in your AMP, did you find out recently Air Force School will not pay for the prep course anymore, correct? Anybody not know that? Well, sorry man, they won't pay for the prep course anymore. So, our solution to that is to start an in-house prep course. What we found out is that Air Force School will pay for books and materials up to, I think he said $500, right?
Right.
So, we're going to start looking into the materials we're going to need. I'm not talking about just books and stuff, but we're also talking about sheet metal, rivets, stuff like that. And we're going to try to get with Azalea, because let's be honest, so crew chiefs, like on A10s, I can tell you a lot about flight controls, I can tell you a lot about hydraulics, I can tell you quite a bit about the engine, but I've never once shot a rivet in my life. When you do your practical, you're going to have to shoot rivets. That's a sheet metal task. So that's some of the things we're going to start doing. We're going to start taking the stuff that we know, and we're going to put it out there. We're going to get instructors that are in these different career fields. So if you guys know of any maintainers that want to help with that, that's another thing we're going to start asking for volunteers. And like, I'm going to start hitting up sheet metal. Hey, any of you guys want to come teach a group of people how to shoot rivets? Engine personnel, hey, come down, teach us about the engine. Us crew chiefs, teach
teach about flight control rigging, teach about hydro systems, stuff like that. Yeah, we'll give you guys that. On-base A&P written testing is free. And from what I understand, there's no cap on how many times you can take that written test. That's correct? That's what we got from.
You have 2 years for the first test that you take until you do your oral practical. You have to start over. But
So you can study in the books all day long, get your writtens done, knock that stuff out, and then the prep course we want to start getting started is going to help get you guys ready for your oral and your practical. That's kind of the role behind it. For any of this stuff to work, whether it's your A&P side or your private pilot's license, participation is key. You know, as the saying goes in the Air Force, we're not really about hand-holding. It's the same kind of in the Aviation Club. We're gonna give you guys the information. That's how the saying goes, lead a horse to water, but we're not gonna make you drink. We're gonna give you all this, but if this is what you want, you're gonna have to take the next step and go, yep, I'm doing this. So when we put together things like what we're doing on Saturday, to go jack an aircraft and pull landing gears out, show up. And that's actually Bill Clapp's favorite saying. Just show up. We'll get you where you need to be. Is there any questions about any of that?
who was interested in their A&P? Alright. So, Sir Juggernaut, I know you had some things you wanted to say?
Yeah,
He's our vice president, by the way.
So, for an AMP, there are multiple avenues to obtain an AMP. It's not just one track. You call it something like that. Here's an Air Force track to utilize your Air Force experience with the CCAF program. Go through that program. It's the fastest, probably the most efficient program out there for obtaining the AMP license. I would say it's plug and play once you complete that program. There's no kind of formal visit to a FISTA or anything like that. It's straight to the head office, knock out your general airframe air and power plant testing. Once that's accomplished, locate a DME, do the oral and practical, and that's it. There are other avenues. They'll take a little bit more time, and they require you coming out of pocket on some of the crash course curriculum out there. So there's 2 tracks. So I recommend the Air Force track. However, Tom Fitzpatrick right here, he did the out of pocket, correct?
Air Force School paid for it, that.
What, at the time, not currently right now. So it is. It will be required out of pocket at the current moment right now. It may change later on. There's more to come on that. However, there's no time frame on that. Any questions? EMP wise. Feel free to get with me after this, and I can work with you on a one-on-one if you guys are really serious about the EMP license. If it's something you really want to pursue, and I can give you the most amount of knowledge that I have in regards to obtaining that EMP, the fastest way to get it, and what those are utilizing experience you got. And we're talking about developing a new initiative, so that's another avenue that we possibly can utilize here on the Air Force Base. So if you guys are really interested in this, please get with us afterwards, and we'll be able to pass that information along.